Everybody, welcome to the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. I'm Joe Klimczewski with Tyler Weeb. We're going to talk about the process. I'm calling it a process on purpose, Tyler, because I had this epiphany this week. The process of motivation or the process of goal attainment. And as we say almost every single episode, it's like, gosh, do we cover this already? This seems really familiar because almost everything that I would consider self-development has a lot of overlap. There are so many components. And I did something interesting. Where is it here? This week with my daily live support chats I do with clients and coaches, I pulled out a notebook and I said, okay, we're gonna figure this out. I want you guys to help me brainstorm every single variable and component of motivation, self-determination, goal attainment. And I said, we tend to, of course, think in binary. So we're going to think, oh, this is the answer. But I guarantee you're going to see that this is so multidimensional that there are pathways that lead to decision points, and just like, time is the fourth dimension of the other three dimensions and so forth. You're going to see that this is so complex, it would be almost impossible to even create a graphic or a flow chart. But just the process of doing it, we really uncovered a lot of things. So before I add any of that information, tell me what you think is the number one thing or the doorway into attaining a goal.
Ooh, that's a good question. Oh man. What is, and this is because this is something that I've been really, I don't want to say maybe struggling with, but wrestling with lately, just, a lot in my life. And I'm trying to find, that motivation, right? Like what is going to continue to drive me in the darkest of times when I don't want to do anything, when I don't have the quote unquote motivation, right? Because I think we all have been through it. Like we start something new, we have like this adrenaline, we have this high almost, we're like, life is amazing. And then eventually that crashes, right? Eventually that's going to come down. And so it's, I think, kind of finding that deep motivation of, okay, when this does occur, because it is going to occur, what is going to continue to drive me forward?
Well, it's really cool. I mean, and I love the fact that you had to think about it for a minute. And then you really, I think, came to what I asked, which was the doorway. You said it's, there is a process there. There's something unique and it's so novel. This is a key word. It's novel enough that it excites you. It drives you. You're so fired up. And then you said eventually that fades. I would contend it can even fade by the end of that day. Like every day we wake up, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, I do this every weekend. Like I'm going to get so much done this weekend. And here are all the projects that have been stacking up. And then it's like, by the end of the day, it's like, shit, where'd the day go? Like I didn't get any of it done. And so that process of staying motivated and attaining a goal, there are tons of reasons and barriers that we just don't tend to do it. But just speaking about skill transference for a second, let me ask you, just pick one, maybe like the greatest goal you've ever attained that you're really proud of. What's one thing you can say, man, this is number one in my life. I worked my ass off for this and I'm proud of it.
I think the first thing that comes to mind, and I think if I stuck with it, obviously, family, that kind of stuff, it definitely goes without saying. But I would say, if I'm speaking very selfishly, when I stepped on the bodybuilding stage in, was it 2018 now? I don't know. It's 2018, 2019. That was, something that I knew I put all of myself into. Like I didn't leave anything, on the floor. Like I had a perfect prep. Like I didn't miss one cardio session. I did not cheat one meal, one day, or, what have you. Didn't miss a workout. That was something that like I had really committed myself to. And so, yeah, I would say that'd be the first thing that comes to mind.
And you said that was your first bodybuilding contest?
Second, sorry.
Okay. So it was somewhat new, like your first contest, you figured some stuff out. You learned the ropes. You probably did fail a little bit. And you,
oh
and
yeah.
you,
Yeah. I didn't really start until like 9 weeks to go. I was like, oh shit, I better get in gear.
So with a little bit of knowledge, especially the humility, knowing that, this is serious now, because I find the same thing with clients who are just going for some kind of a health transformation and they lose weight. So, I mean, it's almost a rule that somebody who loses 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 130 pounds, and they work so hard and they're so motivated and they get there, no matter how much you set them up for sustainability and you warn them and you try and talk about all of the things that we now have to normalize, they gain it back. They gain a lot back. And then it's typically the second or third time that they really nail it. And so the first time, I would say it is an exciting, novel thing where you just can't get enough. You eat, sleep, and breathe this goal, but that's not necessarily real life. Like, you can capitalize on that and you can get a lot done, but to sustain that is more difficult. So you have to eventually move that novelty and that dopamine fix to an internal intrinsic goal state. And to do that, somebody who, I mean, we all know, I mean, if you've studied self-determination and motivation, all that, you know that intrinsic value aligned goals and feelings and thoughts, that's how you sustain something. That's how you become that person. But that's the difficult thing. Like, that's the $1 million question. How do you get there? And here's this process. So I think one thing is to kind of learn that novelty process. There's some good in that. We have to try and replicate so that newness and that excitement. But then we also have to realize it doesn't last like that. It's you can't get a cotton candy high every day from it. You got to figure out how to use other mechanisms. But then, like, there are a lot of other variables that I want to touch on. So going back to your process of how you did that perfect thing, let's extend it to the third, the fourth, the fifth, where you are now, because you still have those kind of goals. You're still, right now, you're working on gaining lean body mass, gaining strength. You're looking forward to the next contest. So after that perfect prep, how have you internalized? What are mechanisms you've used to internalize that process?
Can you clarify that question? Like, what exactly do you mean by, like, internalize that process? Like, how are
you still motivated to go to the gym every day now? How are you motivated to make sure you're eating the right food,
right,
and doing the right things? How
gotcha.
are you still on that trajectory? Because you achieved the goal, man. This was perfect. I've done it once. Check it off the list. Now, how are you still moving forward? What skills did you bring with you?
It's funny. Like, it definitely taught me a lot more about the idea of being consistent on a much higher level. Now, especially during a building phase, you were going to go through those phases where we're maybe not super consistent. I just went through like a 6-week phase where, I was probably 50%, but it really kind of showed the value of that, as well as how hard I can actually push myself. Right. Because there were days, I'm doing, you're doing 45, 60 minutes of cardio in the morning, still got maybe a training session as well. And then you got to come back and maybe do some PM cardio near the end. Like that was part of the reality. And so there's days where you don't even want to, get up off the couch. I had to call an Uber once because I didn't want to walk 15 minutes, in one direction. I was so tired. So I think you're really able to.
You took an Uber to do your cardio?
Almost, right? Like almost. They go push it down the street, right? And just really realizing when you're that physically tired, you can kind of still pick yourself up mentally and go do something that you have to go get done. And so being able to, transfer that over into, everyday life or now, is certainly, I think, something that you only really get from something like prep when, you are in that, in that mental state. Like I was literally tasting Oreos in my mouth at bedtime. Like eventually, like towards the end, I hadn't had Oreos, trust me, but I could taste them, like literally taste an Oreo. So
I think that's
when you're in that kind of state and just you saw me that post show anyways, and you know how things went with that. And just, why do we, go to the gym every day and lift in silence with 10 other people who are all listening to headphones, right? Like I always find it like the funniest thing. And a lot of it is now just come down to like longevity and health too. And and just, how much I see people around me at my age breaking down already, and, having already all kinds of, physical issues and, health issues. And I'm like, man, you're only 33, but it's like you move like you're, in your 50s and 60s already. And so that has definitely become a even bigger motivation for me. And I think that is the ultimate intrinsic motivation when you're going for, pure longevity of life. And that is certainly something I've tried to push more into my coaching, and go, okay, let's not just worry about the 6 months. Remember, like, we're in this for life. Like, this is a longevity thing. And so that has become like a big motivator.
I have to put on my Freud glasses now to analyze what you just said, because you made an interesting juxtaposition there. You started answering this question, and you transitioned, I think, without even knowing it.
Probably.
This is why I'm going to totally Freud the shit out of this. You started out saying, it was kind of a 3-time-a-day thing. Some days, morning, evening cardio, workout. That takes some dedication. Like, you have to assume if this thing is worth achieving, it has to be a priority. I can't have 6 different major life goals happening at once. I have to have time for this, and I will carve this out. I'm going to do this. You even use the word selfishly. If I have to say something selfishly, like, of course, my primary goal, biggest thing I'm proud of is my family, love my daughter. But man, this is the thing I've done for me. Then, as a way of trying to link that to, number one, justify the selfishness, and number two, really internalize it, which is what we're after. You started talking about all the health values and the things it does. And I'm taking care of myself. This is self-care. This is doing the right thing. I'm being responsible. And that, my friend, is why moral psychology and the internalization, the emotionalization of goals is so important. If you don't have, it's not being selfish. You can't just say, I'm going to be a total dick and not care about anybody else and only do this thing. You have to say, this is a higher cause. I'm taking care of myself because if I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of my family. If I don't have something that I'm looking forward to achieve and that gets me excited, I'm going to be a piece of shit for my family and my friends and my clients. So this is all, it's not selfish. It's even modeling for your daughter. It's modeling for your clients that you're doing something worthwhile. When during COVID, when I decided, okay, we're going to be locked down for a while, why not do another master's degree? So I did an 18-month social science master's degree in 15 months. And I mean, it was work, like 2 hours every night. I had to block off the schedule. I'm reading, I'm writing all day Sunday. First thing, I wake up Sunday morning, take the laptop to the kitchen table, and it's like 8 hours of lectures and schoolwork. But I made room for that. I didn't have anything else to do. I couldn't travel for a year and a half because of COVID. And my family knows this is what I do. This is what makes me who I am. And so there's that sense of, well, that's just dad being dad, and he's a motivated guy, and they're proud of me for that, and it models it for them. But then, they just get to be a part of that. And it's not me just selfishly, like I couldn't have done that in a normal work context. I would have had to drag it out for 4 or 5 years like I do other things. But anyway, all that just to say, Tyler, you talked about the key thing, which is you have to prioritize something, make it a singular focus, and then you have to align it to true emotional values. And that those things are key.
Amen.
That's the end of the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I didn't know this was also going to be a potential therapy session.
Take off my Freud glasses now.
Yeah. Okay. We're done with that. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, kind of as you were kind of talking it's not a selfish thing, because, you are growing from it, and kind of like you were saying, right? It's going to benefit those around you, those loved ones that you do have, by, sharing, that goal with them. They're like, I mean, shit, there's an avenue right there to help you with your, with your motivation. Like, tell your significant other, what you're trying to accomplish and why. that's important, because now they're able to understand you on a deeper level. And it's, where me and my wife Stephanie, like, we're always, asking, each other, like, how best can I, motivate you in this? How can I do this for you? What do you need from me in this situation? Because we are all different and we all need different things. But by being able to, share that experience, I think you're going to have that much more success. And to kind of come back to my bodybuilding competition, that was something we spent, the year before talking about. And if I was going to do it, like, it was a decision we made together, because the first time I did it, I didn't let her in, and I completely just, shut her off at a certain point, because, if you haven't done prep, like, that really does take over your life. And so to be able to then have that communication and to, understand each other, and kind of not set up rules, but, like, saying, you can't shut me out, when you're hungry, we had this discussion of things that we had this experience the first time we didn't want to happen. And I think just having that type of support also made that experience, she was backstage with me. She did my tan. She's running around doing all these things on show day for me. Like, I forgot my number back at the Airbnb. She bolted back, like, and went and got it for me, so I wasn't, having a massive cortisol dump. So I really think bringing in those close to us is a very, very important factor to this, to maintain that motivation beyond kind of that initial high that we do get.
It's another huge point. Like that's in the book. Like a lot of people talk about that
writing
from different angles. Well, it's like, it not only are we a social species, and not only is it helpful when we have the permission and the support, so we don't feel guilty of those around us, but people want to help people. Like, if you ask, how can I best support you? What do you think your spouse is going to do when you need something? Like, you're not going to have to ask, they're going to offer in that alignment. I mean, that's the number one factor, research number one factor in a successful relationship, is that you are allies. And I think, you brought up this huge point, which is, if you have somebody that you just feel linked to, there are so many levels of accountability. You not only don't feel the guilt, you feel the support, but now you feel like we're a team, like, I'm doing this for them too. And if you have an honest conversation, and I know your daughter's only one, but, like, what if she was 6? I remember when my kid, my last season competing, my oldest son was 12. So my, next daughter would have been 10, and then 8, and then 4. Like, that was the first time, because, I had competed all these years prior to that. That was the first time my older kids were really cognizant of what was actually happening. And so, they were encouraging, they saw it, they knew what I was doing. And there was just that team family camaraderie. And I think of one of my local clients here who's lost 130 pounds already. She's got 30 or 40 more to go. And her husband's like her biggest cheerleader. Man, let's do this. What are we going to do now? Like, do you need a new pair of running shoes? They hired me. It's like, she does tennis and cycle bar and this and this. She's got all these things around her. She's built that support system, but her number one supporter is her husband. And, they also have a 4-year-old son. And you better believe, like, he's watching this and seeing how hard mommy's working and so forth. And if you're trying to do these things alone, it is so much more an uphill battle than if you really have the alliance of your family.
Yeah. Cause I mean, when you're alone, I mean, we're all our own worst enemy in those alone times, right? When things just aren't going well, we're the best at convincing ourselves to do the worst thing that we could possibly do in that moment, typically, right? And so to be able to have that person to kind of see that, drag you out, and kind of, get you back focused and on that goal, it's pretty priceless. I mean, I know my wife's done it for me multiple times already in the last few weeks. So it's something that I'm pretty high on right now.
Well, I'll wrap us up like this. And it is that the whole reason I wanted to create this as a series of euphemisms, as a graphic, as a literal diagnostically described process, is we have to get this down into an intrinsic level. But I used to think there's external motivation and internal. External is bad. It's just the fleeting dopamine high and it doesn't get you anywhere. You got to be intrinsic. What I was missing is that you build intrinsic motivation like you build muscle tissue. It takes reps, it takes time, it takes learning all the variables. And part of the process is actually using these external boxes that you can check. Do I have the right support system? Have I done this? Have, like, what are these things as we've been describing? And then that's how you build the intrinsic into a process. And more than anything, you just have to give yourself the time and the allowance and really dig into what it means. Like, this is not just, a conceptual abstract. This is a real thing that obviously, as we began this podcast, that everybody contends with. It's not easy. If it were easy, we'd all just attain every goal and everybody'd be winning all day long at everything.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to keep score anymore.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching, listening to the Mind Muscle Connection. Tyler, as always, thanks for your contribution. You're always so thoughtful and come up with such great information on the fly. Love doing this with you. And we will see you guys all next time in the Mind Muscle Connection.